Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Aplastic Anemia and MDS International Foundation podcast series. We're coming to you today thanks to generous support from individuals, donors, and our corporate partners, including Celgene. My name is Tricia, and I'd like to introduce Robert Burleson, our communications manager.
Hello, everyone, and I would like to introduce Patrice Starks, who hails from Dallas, Texas. Patrice?
Woo-hoo, go Cowboys.
Yeah, hey, bad. Patrice is a survivor of aplastic anemia. So, first, to get started, Patrice, we'd like to know a little bit about you, just what your life was like and what you were doing before you received your diagnosis. And as part of this, we do have to ask, can you share your age at diagnosis and your age now? But just tell us a little bit about how things were going before you were diagnosed.
I was diagnosed in 2013, so doing the math, 5 years, that makes me 47 when that happened. I will be 52 in May. And life was pretty normal for me. I would get up every morning and do a couple miles walking, not running, but walking. And I had taken a break from that morning ritual during the holidays because nobody wants to be working out during Thanksgiving and Christmas. At least that was my excuse. So that worked very well for me.
Quite all right.
When I started back up in January, it just didn't feel right. I'd do a block and get really winded. And it continued to get progressively worse until the end of February. And that's when the ball dropped for me.
Okay.
What happened?
So it's interesting that you say that. I was at home watching Robin Roberts' special on 2020 about her struggle with breast cancer and then AML. And while watching that show, I felt the need to clear my throat. And when I did, nothing happened. So I went to the bathroom and I coughed really hard and I coughed up a blood clot.
Oh.
So that was my wake up call. So I went to the doctor the next day, and 5 days later, I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia, and it has been, it's probably one of the scariest things that could happen to me to hear that was a disease for which there is no cure. But at the same time, there was really nothing I could do but weather the storm and get through it. So I'm a woman of faith, and I had excellent medical care, family and friends, and I went through it, made it through it.
Well, you did cover a little bit of my next question in a cogent way, the sequence of events that happened, and the diagnosis came very quickly. And you mentioned some of this, I think. Just during this first phase, what challenges you faced pre-treatment?
Pre-treatment, just not knowing what was going on, but just knowing my body, being able to, I had something to measure it against because I was so fatigued by the end of February. I'm thinking, am I just out of I can't be that out of shape. I could whip out 2 miles in just a few minutes and then come back home, take a shower, and get ready to go work 9 hours a day. Mm-hmm. But again, I was so lethargic. It just seems like when I would get home and I'm not a napper, I'd sit on the sofa and fall asleep. And I'd wake up when my sister would get home, and we'd eat, and I'd go back to sleep. And that's just not me. So that's how I knew something was going on.
Okay, thanks. And now, can you talk a little bit about your treatment regimen? You've been diagnosed. There's a number of, well-established treatments. Can you talk about, what you took and how often you went back for evaluations and a little bit about the treatment team, medical treatment team you had?
Oh, they are my family now. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the hematologist oncologist who took my case happens to be one of the leading specialists in the country treating aplastic anemia. So again, there were all of these just wonderful things that just happened, and I don't think it just happened, but they were appointed unto me. So I went through ATG the first time, and that regimen, I had the horse ATG the first time.
Correct.
And they told me when I went in, I would be in the hospital for 6 to 8 weeks to prepare myself to practically move in and become a resident of the hospital. Well, that's not cool because I have things to do. So we did the ATG, and they said generally 3 days after the last treatment is when you start to see cell growth. Well, the first day after my treatment, they started to see a difference in my bone marrow counts.
That's remarkable. That's remarkable.
That was very remarkable. So that was 2013. And in the middle of that treatment, I would go back for follow-ups and fluids and transfusions as I needed them. I found out that I had stage 4 thyroid cancer.
Whoa.
So because I was back up on the good side with the blood counts, we went the thyroid way, took out the thyroid. There were 42 cancerous lymph nodes in there, and my surgeon was supposed to be in there just 3 hours. It turned into a 6-hour operation, but they got everything, and that's behind me. So everything was good for about 2 years. And then Thanksgiving of 2016, I was shopping for Thanksgiving dinner, and my body just did something weird, and it was like, if you take another step, you're going to pass out. Mm-hmm. Well, I called my husband at the time, and I was like, hey, something's going on again, and I don't feel right. He's like, are you able to drive? I said, I'm going to make it home. And I called the doctor, and he had me to come in, and my numbers were terrible again. At my initial diagnosis, a healthy individual has 150,000 platelets. Well, my platelet count was 6,000. So
significant.
So I could feel it going that way again. And from November 2016, we went back to do another round of ATG, and this time they did the rabbit, and we were not successful. So from November of 2016 to March of 2017, I was in the doctor's office every Friday because that was my day off, and I was getting some form of a blood product.
So you were getting transfusions?
Transfusions, something every week. Mm-hmm. And finally, January 2017, the doctor, he just told me, he's like, look, we can't do this anymore. If we keep this up, you've got about 90 days to live. Wow. We've got to do a transplant. Yeah.
Well, that's certainly, we'd spoken to you a number of years ago, but this is an update that we're, shocked to hear.
Was that scary for you to hear that you had to have a transplant?
Again, not really, because I am of the belief that, I have a lot of beliefs around it. Again, I was not afraid because there was nothing I could do to make myself better. And this is not to minimize any other type of cancer, but if it were breast cancer, I would have had the breast removed. Or if it was liver cancer, I would have had to do something to my liver. But there is nothing you can do when you have a blood-borne cancer.
Right.
There's nothing to remove. You have no other alternatives but to do what you have to do. So in 2013, we had typed my daughters to see if they would be a match, and they were 50% match, and he said at that time it just wasn't a good thing to do. But those same kids were still a 50% match 5 years later, and because medicine has advanced so far, he said, we're going to do it. So my youngest daughter, who at the time was 24, gave me 5 million cells, and we did the transplant. And there's my family has a crazy sense of humor because we all laugh about it now. I couldn't tell my brother about it, I couldn't talk to him about it. 6'5", former security detail for President George Bush and Ann Richards when she was governor of Texas. And, he's a big guy and he can take bullets for public figures. But when his little sister is dying with cancer or fighting cancer, he couldn't do anything but cry. So I couldn't talk to him. My sister works at the hospital in the pediatric unit where they always see little babies going through transplants. And unfortunately, all that she remembers is the ones who don't make it. I couldn't talk to her about it. So everybody has that one family member who's just out there. And this one family member to me said, I don't think you should do it. I said, if we don't do it, we'll either be planning my funeral in 90 days or we'll be celebrating in 90 days. I'm going in. I'm going to do it. I'll see you guys later. And we did it.
And you made up your mind. Can you tell us a little bit about the pre-treatment and the process itself?
the pre-treatment was just the preparation to get my body ready for everything. And then from there, we went through a lot of orientation and training and meeting people. And the hospital did a very good job of getting my family oriented and preparing them for what was going to happen. And aside from me being a coach, I told them, look, get it together. I don't need any wimps around me. Man up. We got to do this.
Now, let me ask you, once the transplant happened, can you talk a little bit about your recovery, how you felt, or how long it took to feel close to normal?
It took about, I was in the hospital for 5 weeks, and that whole stint was remarkable because I had great caregivers around me.
Okay, so you felt progressively better pretty quickly because, of course, can be side effects and unintended things.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of side effects?
Other than, of course, the diva that I am, I lost all of my hair, and
of course.
In itself became a trademark. Though I couldn't wear the wigs; they were too hot. So I was just all natural. I was just out there and loved it. I've always had long, beautiful, thick hair, and that just became a new life for me. So it was a new me. So you
embraced it.
Oh, my gosh. Did I ever? I had a photo shoot done. Let me tell you.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So it became part of my life, but it probably, I never would have wanted that to happen to me. Nobody wants cancer, but the fact that I had that rare blood cancer has just truly changed who I was into an even better version going forward.
You wouldn't believe how often I hear other patients who've been through similar circumstances say that.
Can I ask a question about your caregivers? I have read that caregivers have a really important role in transplant patients' lives for stem cell transplants. Can you tell me a little bit about what your caregivers did for you?
Yeah, I assembled my dream team and assigned each of them responsibilities. Can you tell I'm a control freak? But my sister, who works there at the hospital, was there for me from a clinical perspective. My best friend is an RN, so she would come up just to look at my face. And then my daughter works at the hospital. So I had a lot of medical professionals around me. But aside from that, I had people from my church who would pay for cleaning people to come over and clean the house, because when you come home from the hospital, it has to be sterile. It has to be clean. You don't have anything to fight any diseases. So I had people bringing me food, and I am a foodie. I'm a great cook. But there were days that I just didn't want to eat. But I had enough food to feed me and my family. People here at my job, they did a gift card drive for my husband for those weeks that I wouldn't be at home and not able to cook. And they provided him with enough meal cards to feed him way past the time that I got home.
Wow.
So, but the caregivers,
That's a very vibrant support network you have, truly.
And I'm grateful for it because they are a great part of my quick recovery. And they were those people who they were there, and I could be truthful with them because by nature I'm a positive, just a really positive person. But on those days that I didn't feel great, I could just literally say, guys, I don't feel well. And they understood.
Well, that's great. So, moving on, you've recovered. You've going back into normal life now. One other thing comes back into play here. You mentioned at the outset Robin Roberts, and now subsequently Robin Roberts comes back into your situation. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, and it's the craziest thing because when you and I emailed about this podcast, I'm a Facebook girl, so I just went out on Facebook and I was like, guys, I never, ever imagined 5 years ago when this happened that, I went to a conference to learn everything about my disease, and then they interviewed me afterwards, and now they're starting a podcast series, and I'm going to be a guest. And then I was like, you just never know what your situations will grant you. And I said, the only thing that has not happened is I have not met Robin Roberts just to tell her thank you for being so transparent, because as I saw what she went through in that special that night, I was like, once I was diagnosed, I was like, okay, I saw what Robin went through. And I was like, I would just love to be able to tell her thank you. Well, the world of Facebook is a wonderful thing if you use it the right way. Mm-hmm. And a Facebook friend who graduated with my sister happens to know someone who knows Robin very well. And as a result of that, I will be her guest on Good Morning America next Tuesday.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
The chatty Cathy that I am and this A-positive girl that I am, I will probably just go completely numb. If they ask me anything, I probably won't even know what my name is.
Well, you've been very cogent with us, certainly. I'd like to ask you also, how did you discover AAMDSIF? And, of course, you did go to 2 of our conferences, I believe. It's been a while, but could you talk about those conferences and what it did for you, what you learned, who you met?
What happened while I was in the hospital that first time, I just started Googling aplastic anemia because I wanted to learn everything that I could about the disease so that I would be able to speak intelligently about it, because I didn't know anything about it. You go to the hospital because you coughed up a blood clot, and they tell you got a disease for which there is no cure. Well, hold on a minute. So I wanted to know everything that I could. And when I saw that I saw your organization, and the conference was coming up in April, and that was in March when I was still in the hospital, I went ahead and registered then. I didn't know who I would meet, but it was in Houston. And again, that's where my best friend lives, who's the RN. Mm-hmm. So I called her. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to this conference, and it also covers caregivers. Would you like to go?" She's like, "Absolutely."
And she went with you. You mentioned that.
She went with me, and we learned a great deal. And when while I was there, I got information. I came back and told my doctor's office about the materials that you guys have, and I put the office manager in touch with your organization, and they still get literature from you to educate aplastic anemia patients. So I see them in there all the time when I go, and I just kind of smile because that's us.
Yeah, well, that's very rewarding to hear from me, because I'm in part responsible for those materials, and I'm glad they're getting out there. And then why would you, as far as our conferences, why would you recommend them to newly diagnosed patients who are now where you were back then, or even ones who are further along in treatment, similar to where you have been in your journey? Why would you recommend them?
Simply, it's a necessary learning tool, because you get to know the physiology of the disease. Because I remember there was someone there from the NIH, and she was speaking way over my head, but my best friend was sitting next to me, and she was telling me, "Oh yeah, I know this." So then there was an opportunity to meet other people and find out different stories and different just where everyone was in their diagnosis. So we were all coming from different backgrounds, but we had this one thing in common, that we were ill, and we needed to know everything that we could about it. So I highly recommend everybody, because if you have the knowledge of what's going on, then if you hear something bad, then you already are aware of it. You know how to handle it, or you're a little bit more prepared for what may be around the corner. At least that's how I was.
Well, thank you. That's a very excellent recommendation. I'm just going to take a moment to mention that our current series of patient and family conferences is just getting started. They run from late March into late in the fall of every year, and you can find more information on AAMDSIF patient and family conferences at, here we go, www.aamds.org/education/conferences. So, Patrice, we've heard a whole lot about your story today, from the remarkable appearance of Robin Roberts in the beginning and towards the end. And I'd like to ask you if you could bring it down or boil it down to one thought or bit of advice that you would like to share with other bone marrow failure disease patients, aplastic anemia patients who are now where you were at that time. What would you tell them?
It's very interesting. I'm writing a new book. This is my second book, but I'm talking about the title of it is 5 Smooth Stones for Cancer Survivors. And one of the things that I'm putting in there is how you look at this. We've all talked about the perspective of this glass half full or is it half empty? Well, I say that I don't know about the glass because I'm focusing on my cup and it's running over. And for me, it's about your approach, how you look at this. Nobody wants to talk about the inevitable, that there is a percentage, there's a possibility that you could die from this. Yes, let's go ahead and accept that up front. And now that we accept it, we go on. But there's also a possibility that you survive. So that's what I always focused on, was my survival. I didn't let stinking thinking, is what I call it, rule me. It's all about your approach, how you look at this. Because even right now, if I pass away today, this thing did not define me. I defined it. So I think if patients or someone who has been recently diagnosed just gets past what the statistics have said in the past, because the statistics are getting better now. They're getting much better. And the survival rates are on the increase. And March 24th will be 2 years for me. And I've never felt better. I know this is the best I felt probably in 10 years. So approach it with the mindset that I'm going to be better than this either way. Don't be afraid for long. It's okay to be afraid just a little bit up front, but at the same time, don't park your car and live there. You have to get past that and then just walk through it. One step at a time, one diagnosis, one day at a time, and you'll get through it.
Well, Patrice, that's excellent advice and most acceptable and quotable, I might add. We've heard so much about your story today, and I just want to thank you for sharing all this information, the dates, the specifics, the treatment regimen, your own feelings and attitudes about it, and how, of course, AAMDSIF did help you get through things. So again, thanks for sharing your journey, and back to you, Tricia.
Thanks, Bob. And thank you so much, Patrice. You've given us not just the story of your patient journey, but also many words of wisdom that all of our listeners can hang on to. We really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. I'm not Robin Roberts. I'm not at her platform yet, but you can ask anybody. I'll talk to anybody in the grocery store, wherever about this, because knowledge is power. That's just not a cliche. The more you know about it, the less fearful it is.
That's really great. And thank you, listeners, for being here. As a reminder, the AAMDSIF helpline is here for you at 800-747-2820, option 2, or email help@aamds.org, where you can be connected with Peer Support Network and other support groups. To connect with your peers online, you can go join the confidential chat at marrowforums.org. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.